You may be at a point in your life where you feel like you just can't catch a break. That when you take a step back and you look at your past, you may find that it's riddled with hardships and roadblocks that maybe prevented you from being that person that you wished you could be. For those of you who don't know me, I may come across as a person whose sole focus in life is health and fitness and working out in the gym. For those that know me a bit better, I may come across as a thoughtful, caring person who is physically fit, yes, but who has also found exceptional balance in his life. I'm healthy. I have a wonderful, loving relationship with my wife. I would do just about anything for my friends and family. I have a challenging career, and I don't believe in carrying excessive debt. But it poses a question. Where did I learn to be that person? How did I become the person that I am today? Did I have a perfect life? Did my dad sit me down one day and have a long talk about how to create a perfect relationship and how to treat your wife? Was there some coach out there that just inspired me and made me want to be a health and fitness person and taught me all the ropes? Was there someone out there that gave me financial advice or career advice so that I could understand as a young person what I wanted to be in life? Well, the answer to all those questions is a resounding no. This week's going to be a very different episode, and then I'm going to share with you some very personal stories of my own about where I truly acquired the characteristics that I have today, and I think you're going to be surprised. More importantly, these stories may have the ability to help you change your own perception about your own past, allowing you to get rid of some of the pain that you may be carrying and allowing you to break through some of those roadblocks along the way. Let's dive in. Welcome to episode 30 of the LeRock Show, where I'm here to help you get your fitness back on track at any age and regardless of your current fitness level, so you can spend more quality time with your families, have a brighter outlook on life, and finally find the true joy that life has to offer. I'm your host, LeRock. Well, today is another great day, and I'm pumped to be hanging out with you today. I hope you are having an amazing day. For those of you listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify today, thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out with me, and thanks for your reviews, because I really do appreciate the feedback. And if you're watching on YouTube, thanks for being here again today. Like every day, today might just be that day that changes everything. And as always, I look forward to your comments and feedback because your opinions really do matter to me. Now, for those of you that have been hanging around each week, this week's episode truly will be a different episode than what you're used to. I won't be sharing with you any simple steps or directives that you can implement into your life in order to lose weight and stay healthy for a lifetime. This week's episode is going to be very different. Instead, I've decided to share with you some very personal, deeply personal stories about myself with the intention to get you more acquainted with who I am as a person, but also to provide you some insight and a different perspective that might help you along the way. One thing that I've learned in life through my 52 years of being alive is that not one person that I know of has truly led a perfect life with a perfect past. And in fact, many people carry with them secretly their own stories of abuse and neglect. Those painful stories that many people choose to bury deep down inside in hopes that they'll never have to think about them again. Unfortunately, if we do so, if we choose to bury those painful memories, we miss the opportunity to reflect and understand the lesson that life is trying to teach us along the way. Now, if that doesn't make sense to you at this point, that's perfectly okay. After watching today's episode, I think when we come out the other side, you're going to have a very good understanding of where I'm coming from. Now, I have many, many stories that I can share with you, my experience along the way. And some of them may seem dark and painful, but I find that each one of them has its own valuable lesson that I learned from. Now, today I'm going to share with you 3 simple stories, and I'm going to try to keep them short and to the point. But what I'm going to try to show you is there's 2 ways you can look at every story, everything that's happened to you in the past. And it's something I've learned along the way. Now, today's episode will be very different. And if you find that you like this kind of format, this kind of video, then please by all means drop me some comments at the end of the video. Let me know, and I might share some more stories along the way in the future. Now, if the reason you tune in each week is because you want to lose some weight, you want some tips and tricks on how to do that and how to stay healthy for the long run, then by all means, please take full advantage and download my Automate Your Plate checklist. Automate Your Plate is an eating approach that I created more than 15 years ago now. It helped me to shed 65 pounds in 13 weeks, and I've managed to stay healthy and fit ever since. Automate Your Plate is one of the 9 directives that I talk about in my book and I teach in my online course. There are many benefits to this eating approach. One of which is it gives you lots of control over what you put on your plate, while also giving you tons of variety, keeping you wanting to come back for more. It doesn't require that you starve yourself, and it keeps you fueled and energized for your workouts. Now, those that have tried it and followed it correctly have had amazing results. And yes, results speak louder than words. I'm a 52-year-old fitness enthusiast, author, and online coach. I also work full-time and have an extremely busy schedule. Yet, while following the Automate Your Plate eating approach, as well as the other 8 directives in my book and online course, I've managed to keep the weight off with very little effort at all. So yes, I put together a free step-by-step checklist, the Automate Your Plate checklist, that you can download today for free and begin benefiting from it right away. So by all means, feel free to grab yourself a copy. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can go to ethanlerock.com/automate. That's ethanlerock.com/automate. And if you're watching on YouTube, there'll be a link down below and you can click on it and get it there. Okay, let's get into it. Many times when people go on the internet to seek out training or advice from people, they look at these people on the internet, these coaches, these authors, these mentors, and they make the assumption that these people have some sort of advantage in life that they don't have themselves. That those people that we watch or that we look to for advice have likely lived a perfect life. That somehow they were given all the breaks and had many of the things that they have today handed to them. And as a result, they severely increased their own potential for being successful at what they want to do. And because of that, many people, in fact, dismiss their own ability to rise up and become that better version of themselves because they dismiss it all as they don't have the advantage that someone else has. Well, I'm here today to share with you that even though I am physically fit, I have a wonderful, caring relationship with my wife, I have an amazing, challenging career, I'm financially pretty much set in life, I don't live my life buried in debt, and I live a very comfortable life. And with all that being said, not one of these things was handed to me. Not one of these things came easy. Today I'm going to re-experience some painful memories, and I'm going to share them with you in hopes that it can shift your own perspective just a little bit so that you can understand that life itself many times is teaching us lessons even when we don't know it. Yes, life itself is the ultimate teacher if we allow ourselves to look at things from a different angle. Now, some of these personal stories I'm about to share, I haven't shared them with any of my friends or my family members. And some of these stories still have some lingering pain that are associated with them. Now, I may have shared some of these stories with my wife or my children along the way, but only when I thought that sharing those stories would be of some benefit and would help them through any problems or issues that they might have been experiencing at the time. Yes, these stories weren't easy for me to rehash and bring up, but what I found over time is that the more I pushed through and decided to deal with these memories, these things that happened to me in the past, the greater chance I had at learning the lesson that life was trying to teach me, something valuable that I could take away from those painful memories, something that helped me be the person that I am today. In fact, I'm sure that these painful memories that I carry, like most people, helped shape and form the person that I am today, for better or for worse. And I believe that these stories can also serve as a good example for you. something that you can reflect on, and after you watch the video and listen to some of these stories, that maybe you can have your own little takeaway. Maybe step back and think about some of your own situations you've had to deal with in the past, and a different view that you could have on those memories that would help you to break free of the pain and be able to move forward to find that best version of you. Now, the first story I'm going to share with you is about me as a young little boy. I was around 5 years old. I had kind of a rough start in life. I had a family, my mother, my father, my brother, and my sister. And we all had a, kind of a simple little life. We were not well-to-do. We didn't come from money. And unfortunately, my parents were not very good with money either. So my dad always had a job, and he always was working overtime, but he never could stay ahead of the spending that came from the two of them. And because of that, many times we went without as children. And I have an early memory that I never used to be able to tell, because I would start tearing up and crying when I tell the story. But I was just a young child, and many times I felt neglected, left fending for myself. And I have an early memory. I remember my father, he would buy things when they were on sale. So I remember him stocking all the shelves in our kitchen with cakes one year. There was all kinds of cakes. He must have got them for like 10% off or 25% off or some sort of sale, right? So I had all these cakes in the cupboards, but he failed to buy us groceries. So my mother wasn't well, so she wasn't really taking good care of us. And I ended up figuring out how to bake a cake myself at the age of 5 years old. So what I did is I climbed up on a chair, got up on the bottom shelf, reached up on the top shelf in the cupboard where Dad would keep them, and I pulled down the cake mix. And I got the tin out, and I lit the oven, and I managed to pour the powder into a bowl and mix myself some cake, and I put it in the cake tin, and I baked myself a cake. And just so happens I did it a few times with my sister when I was younger, so I remembered how to do it. And I baked myself this cake, and I remember, it's a vivid memory I have of me when it was all done. I let it cool off a little bit, and then I dug my hands in, and I was eating this cake, and I had cake all over me as this young 5-year-old boy. And that's how I survived. That was the dinner that I ate. And that went on for about a week because there was nobody there to take care of me. My mother wasn't well, and we didn't have good food. We didn't have any food in the fridge. And that was just the way it was. So for many years, I would tell a story, and I would have this picture of myself as this young boy. And I would remember it, and it would be very painful for me to think about. I would think about this poor little kid, this little 5-year-old kid who had to figure out how to survive on his own because there wasn't anybody there that would do that for him. And there's reasons for that too that I won't get into, but I was kind of on my own. And for a long time, it was such a painful story because it is sad. It's pathetic. But years have gone by, and I've been able to reflect and think about what that taught me and what I took away from that whole situation. And what it really did teach me is it taught me that I was a survivor. I was somebody that wasn't willing just to give up and rely on others. It made me more self-sufficient for sure. And it also taught me the importance of being a good father to my children and taking care of them as well. So when I really think about it, this painful moment that I experienced as this little boy, 5 years old, had a lasting impact on who I am today. and had a lasting impact on my character. Okay, the next story is probably the most painful story I have from my past, and that relates to my mother. My mom was mentally ill, and so the first little 4 or 5 years of our life were pretty interesting. As a child, she had schizophrenia, which is a terrible mental illness, where she would talk to people that didn't exist. She often got into arguments with people that weren't there. She neglected her children, obviously. She had these imagined issues in her head where she thought people were against her. And all these were quite weird things for a child to be experiencing at such a young age. And unfortunately, what that resulted in is around the age 6, our entire family broke up. My mother went into mental hospital, and she was in and out of mental hospitals for years. And I, in turn, was left with my brother. We got shipped over to my grandmother's house, and our whole lives changed. I was in probably the 3rd week of grade 1. I got pulled out of my school, away from my friends, into this whole other life. My father wasn't there. He was gone. My sister, she was also gone. She had to go live somewhere else. And it wasn't good for any of us. And me and my brother, to be honest with you, we only had each other where we were at. My grandparents weren't caring, loving, warm people. They were from the old school. And now that I'm an adult, I appreciate who they were. They just seen us as, people that needed some help. They were God-fearing people, and they wanted to help their grandchildren, but that was about it. They weren't the type of people. There was never any hugs or I love yous in the house. There wasn't a whole lot of laughter in the house. So I kind of was left there on my own. And to be honest with you, even though me and my brother only had each other, because of our age difference, we were about 4 years apart in age. He was at a point where he just wanted to be with people his own age or older, because that's how he was coping. He wanted to hang around with people that had more things going on and more excitement going on. And because I was such a little guy and I was 4 years younger, he kind of was like, get away from me, you know what I mean? Like, he wanted to do his own thing. So it didn't make our relationship any better either. In fact, it was quite arduous at times because I was trying to follow him and he was usually pushing me away. And I learned quickly. I had to adapt and I had to overcome. So I lost contact with my favorite person in the whole world at the time. That was my sister. I didn't have my mother. She wasn't there for me. I felt abandoned. Often I felt alone and sad. And it's okay. It's part of life. Life deals you stuff. And for many years, I didn't know how to deal with it. I knew something about it was bothering me. I knew there was something deeply wrong with how I felt about the whole situation. But again, I was just a kid and I was just going through it. And I was trying to adapt in the best way that I could with this crazy traumatic shift in my life. And I have to deal with the fact that my entire life would likely be different today if this whole thing hadn't happened to me at such a young age. I would have lived with my mom and dad. I would have went to a different school. I would have had different friends. And my whole path may have been different. Whether it be good different or bad different, it just would have been different. Now, yet again, this is a story that's very sad and it can be very traumatic when I think about it. Even to this day, it can affect me. But now that I'm an adult and I'm better than that, I can look back at the whole situation with a very different perspective. Some of the takeaways that I have when I think back about that situation, that little boy who was thrown out kind of on his own, lost everything, felt abandoned and alone. The things that I learned from that, my takeaways when I look back at that, is that made me tough. It made me strong. It made me adaptive. It taught me that I can overcome many things in life, and I didn't have to rely on other people to survive. In addition to that, it gave me an extreme appreciation for family and for relationships. And it definitely gave me a different understanding when it comes to mental illness and the impact that mental illness can have on people's lives, on their friends, their family, and everyone around them. But the most important thing that it taught me is the power and the necessity of forgiveness, of being able to look back and forgive so that you can heal and move forward in your life and be a better version of who you are, rather than wallowing in it, wallowing in the self-pity, wallowing in the anger, wallowing in all these feelings of resentment. It's so much better when you can come to grips and learn to forgive and move forward and be at peace and love. And that's exactly what I did. After the years went by and relationships mended and things changed, I was able to forgive. I was able to have a relationship with my mother and my father and all of my family. And I was able to move on and not carry any of this animosity that I could have kept inside. And I guess, again, this is the second story and this is the second lesson where I guess the takeaway from it is there's many ways you can deal with a situation that comes at you. You can choose to let it consume you and keep you stuffed down in life and sad and bitter. Or you can choose to learn from it. Learn what the positive things are that you can take away. What did it do? What did that thing that happened to you do to you that made you a better person than what you were before? What did that one thing that happened to you, or those many things that happened to you in life that were seemingly bad, do to you today that made you a better person, the person that you are today? Now, yes, like I shared before, I was taken away and I had to live at my grandparents' place. And it was very interesting. And maybe I'll get into that sometime in the future. But during this time that I lived there, I think I was around 10 years old. Summertime came and I was allowed to go home to my house with my parents because my mom had just gotten back out of the hospital. And I was living there for the summer, my brother and I both, and we were having a pretty normal summer, experience. But I have these memories at around age 10 of walking the streets at 3 a.m. with a group of kids that are probably 4 or more years older than me. And we weren't doing anything that was, like I'd say, proactive or good. We were looking for trouble. We were looking for places that we could, we had these ideas that we're going to break into these warehouses and all these crazy ideas. I remember running from the police on a few occasions. And I just think back about that. And I used to think back about this story and I would be very angry and I would shake my head and I'd be like, how could you as parents let your 10-year-old boy walk the streets at 3 o'clock in the morning without any thoughts about his safety or the trouble that he could get into or the dangers that were out there? But you just slept at night and you allowed your little boy to walk around in the streets. And for many years, that was my perception and my perspective on the whole thing. But now that I look back at it, I understand. I understand mental illness had a lot to do with the situation. I also understand some of the good things and the characteristics that being in that situation taught me. It taught me to be more self-sufficient for sure. I didn't rely on mommy and daddy to tell me what I should and shouldn't do. I was learning how to do that all on my own. I've learned the good and the bad. You run from the police a few times when you're a 10-year-old boy. You learn that that's something you don't want to be doing. You also learn that life isn't all bad. Yes, I walked the streets at 3 o'clock in the morning, And yes, lots of times we were looking to get into some trouble. But also we had lots of great memories. I had lots of great memories of laughter and goofing around and having fun with my friends. And just precious memories, actually, of childhood. And when most kids at 10 years old were laying in bed at night, sleeping soundly in the safety of their home, I was out doing things that kids in their teens would probably be doing. So it taught me to grow up a little bit faster. But also, the one thing that I take away from the whole thing is I did learn to be more self-sufficient at a very young age. And I also learned over time and over years, again, the power and necessity of forgiveness and what that brings. The peace that brings inside your heart. The peace that brings to you as a human being when you forgive people in life. And when you can move on past the animosity and the anger that you have within you and let it all go. And just realize that life really does happen for you. Things don't happen to you in life. I don't believe that. I believe there is a plan. I believe everything happens for a reason. And I truly believe, I know I've shared these 3 stories with you today. And I know I'm trying to teach you that there's a different angle to every story in hopes that you can learn maybe some of your own stories and free yourself of some of your own pain that you may be experiencing. Or maybe help you flush out some of that pain and learn how to move forward and get around it, get past it. Because that's all we really can do. We cannot change the past. We cannot change what happened to us along the way. And I have, like I said, I have many, many, many stories, unfortunately and fortunately, that are similar to the 3 that I shared with you today. And each one of them is deeply painful in some way. But also each one of them has a valuable lesson that I learned that shaped me to be the man that I am today. That taught me to be empathetic, caring, respectful, a positive member of the community, someone who is a good father, takes care of their children, someone who takes care of himself, keeps himself physically fit and healthy, and has a lot of empathy when it comes to mental illness. Yes, those are the things that life taught me. So in summary, these painful stories that I shared with you today are the things that shaped me to be the man that I am today. They were the starting point of the man that I've become. They taught me early independence. They taught me to be a survivor in life. They taught me to be more loving and caring to my family and appreciate the value of that relationship. They taught me to be a stronger human being, a more self-sufficient person. And they taught me empathy, compassion, and the power and necessity of forgiveness. Again, today's episode was much different than the previous episodes I've made, and it was done so intentionally. Because sometimes, even though we want to do something physical to ourselves, to make ourselves better, it's always worth it to think about some of the things on the inside, up here and in here, that we can start changing, to also put us on the right path for that better version of ourselves that's just waiting on the other side, calling our name, that wants us to be there. And if that voice of yours is calling you and saying, hey, I want you to lose a few pounds, I want you to be healthy and fit, I want you to feel the way that I know you can feel, then by all means, please go ahead and grab a free copy of my Automate Your Plate checklist. The checklist steps you through the Automate Your Plate eating approach that I developed more than 15 years ago. The same exact eating approach that I used to shed 65 pounds in 13 weeks, the same exact eating approach that I'm on right now. The checklist takes everything that I teach in my book and in my online course, and it simplifies it all down into a single page cheat sheet that you can download for free today and begin benefiting from right away. It's as simple as download it, print it, follow the steps, no thinking required. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please go to ethanlerock.com/automate. That's ethanlerock.com/automate. And if you're watching on YouTube, there's definitely a link down below. You can click on it and you can get it there. And before we go, today's episode by no means was an easy episode for me to put together. Sharing painful memories is never an easy thing, but I'm hoping that you can see now that there are some really good takeaways that you can come up with if you take the time to sit down and deal with some of these memories, your own memories that you may have, and just to give yourself a different perspective that'll allow you to let go of some of the pain, some of the burden that you're carrying on your shoulders, and so that you can have a different perspective and walk away from it feeling differently and being able to move on in life in peace and being good with it. So a little bit of homework for you before we go. What I'd like you to do, and the whole point of this video, was to give you an understanding of what it is I'm looking for you to do. I'd like you to sit down with a piece of paper and write down one memory that's painful from the past, your earliest memory you have of something painful that happened to you in the past. I want you to go through it in your mind. And then what I want you to do is sit down. I want you to write down some of the details of that memory that you can remember and how the memory made you feel, okay? And obviously it's going to be the bad parts first. You're going to write down the dread, whatever it was that you felt, and try to articulate it as best you can, or write it out as best you can, so that you can understand what those feelings were that you experienced at the time. Then what I want you to do, once you've written down all the terrible things and how you felt, I want you to take a break and I want you to step away from it for a little bit, 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so. And then I want you to come back to it. And this time, it's going to be even harder. I want you to write down some positive things that you may believe looking back, positive impact that these bad things or this bad memory that you've written down may have had on you as a person, and how it may have shaped the person that you are today. And ultimately, in the end, allow yourself to feel the feelings that you're entitled to feel, but be sure to allow yourself to come to peace with it. If you haven't done so already, allow yourself to forgive, because that's the only way to begin the process of healing and moving forward in life and letting go of all the baggage so that you can be the best version of you. Now, thanks for listening today. We're all in this thing called life, and I'm glad we're in it together. Have a blessed remainder of the week, and until we meet again, stay healthy, be happy, and live your life with intention every single day.